गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। ॐ श्रीकृष्ण परमात्मने नमः। अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता। Should I start from the Nayyayika's Mata, Brahmaraji? Because we had read this already once. I think we can repeat, right?
Yeah, what page is that, Bila?
That was, I read till, I think Dr. Mara also 455, but this is 450. Nayyayika Mata. Again, same like Purva Pakshi, they are also.
Yeah.
Like Gauna only. They are also thinking that this error is not the fundamental error, but it is Gauna only. So from
Yeah,
there.
you want to read from there or you want to read from before that?
Before that, you tell me, no problem, Brahmaraji, because this is
yeah, if you can actually start from.
This is the Vedanti's answer about how it is not Gauna, but how it is
Correct.
like the fundamental error.
Correct.
Yeah, so from here I will read.
Yeah, the eye cognition in the body is not figurative but erroneous, right? That is page 446.
Correct, 446.
Yeah. Let me know until what time you can read. In case there's a need, I will
I'll
take
be going
over.
for long Kriya I'll be going, Brahmaraji. Dhanyavad.
Problem.
Yeah. The eye cognition in the body is not figurative but erroneous. Vedanti's answer. So this is in response to the Purva Pakshi's argument that it is Gauna. They already know that Atma is separate from the body, but it is just like Gauna. Shankara replies that this is not true, for there is something more to understand about a Gauna expression. What is accomplished by the primary thing is not accomplished by what it is figuratively said to be. For instance, even though the father says that the son is himself, when the son eats, it is not equal to his eating. But here, even though the karma is done by the body, mind, sense complex, the notion I am the agent is very much there. If it is not, how can he ever perform a karma like the Agnihotra? Since he is doing it, definitely there is a sense of agency, kartritva buddhi, imputed to the self. Anything done by the body is done by the self. But that is not the case with, with reference to something that is the object of a Gauna expression. The action that the son does is not done by the father. Whereas here, the body does the action, but the notion is I do the action This is not Gauna, it is false mithya. Shankara explains further, there are two types of comparative expressions. If you say a person's courage is like that of a lion, it is a vyakta upama, or a simile. The courage of the lion and the courage of this person are identical. There is also a form of comparison which is not adequately stated, an elliptical comparison, lupta upama, or metaphor. Shankara gives a couple of examples of this type of comparison. If you say that Devadatta is a lion, for instance, all the qualities of the lion do not concur with those of Devadatta. The lion has four legs, Devadatta has only two. The lion has a mane, Devadatta does not, and so on. But at the same time, you say that Devadatta is a lion. What does it mean? In one aspect of the lion, there is a certain identity with Devadatta, and only that identity is pointed out by this word lion. He has the fierceness of the lion or the courage of the lion. This is a Gauna expression. Even though there is a point of similarity, what the lion does, Devadatta cannot do at all. The lion can kill an elephant or a tiger without a rifle. Will Devdatta be able to do that? No. So too, in the expression, the student is fire, the similarity is only in terms of his brilliance or skin color. Shankara says, he cannot do what fire can do. In other words, you cannot boil a kettle of water on his head. The object of the Gauna expression cannot do exactly what the thing to which it is compared can do. On the other hand, when you say I do, you mean it. So beautifully, Shankaraji has given two examples about the Vyakta and Lupta Upama, which you can see the qualities which are there, you can see, but they are not comparable. You can say that the Devadatta is like a lion. So he has the courage like a lion. He cannot act like a lion with four legs. He cannot kill like a lion without rifle. So they are just the Vyakta and Lupta Upamas for comparison. But here, when you say body and this Atma, here it is taken, now Shankara's expression. On the other hand, when you say I do, you mean it. The Atma is taken to be the agent. If you do not accept that, what you are saying is what Vedanta says. If you know that in spite of body and mind doing various things, you are not doing anything. You understand that Atma is Sat Chit Ananda. Only then can you say that Atma is a Karta. If that is so, we have nothing further to discuss. But if whatever the body does, Atma does, and whatever is Atma, that is the lot of the body, it is a mithya statement and not Gauna. A Gauna expression either as an expression of elliptical comparison or metaphor is only meant to praise or reveal a quality of the thing being compared. It is not meant to be used to reveal a thing directly. This is a takeaway statement. I repeat, a Gauna expression either as an expression of elliptical comparison, that is Vyakta, or metaphor, which is Lupta. is only meant to praise or reveal a quality of the thing being compared. It is not meant to be used to reveal a thing directly. What is accomplished by a lion can never be accomplished by Devadatta, nor can what is accomplished by fire be accomplished by the student, that is Gauna. On the other hand, one does experience the undesirable thing which is accomplished by a false recognition, mithya pratyaya. If a person identifies the self with the body, the outcome of that identification is action leading to punya, papa, sukha, dukkha, raga, dvesha, and all that is undesirable. In other words, it leads to samsara. So this is the takeaway line by Shankaraji, why it is mithya pratyaya, not the gauna pratyaya, why it is primary, fundamental error. Because you associate the body. I am dukhi, I am sukhi. I like, I don't like. I go to heaven, I go to hell. Not only that, the one who hears this Gauna expression knows the object described very well. He knows that Devadatta is not a lion and the student is not fire. There is no mistake, and there is, on the other hand, discrimination, viveka, where there is lack of discrimination, and because of that the cognition of a given thing in something that it is not, in the situation of etasmin tad buddhihi, there is mithya pratyaya. A mithya pratyaya is born of aviveka, lack of discrimination. This is the difference between Gauna Pratyaya and Mithya Pratyaya. Knowing that Devadatta is Devadatta and not a lion, yet calling him a lion is Gauna Pratyaya. Mistaking a tree stump for a person is Mithya Pratyaya, which is born of Aviveka. Knowing the difference between the two is discrimination, viveka. When you say, I am the doer, karta, and the Veda has asked me to perform this karma, and therefore I am doing it, even though the action is done by the body, mind, sense complex, and that alone is the karta, that becomes the Atma. Although you believe that Atma is other than the body, Atma is mistaken for the doer Karta. This erroneous notion, due to lack of discrimination, is what is called Mithya Pratyaya. It is Gauna, a figure of speech, only when there is discrimination between the two objects involved. Therefore, it is not true that the I cognition in the body mind sense complex is only figurative gauna. Suppose you understand the difference between the two and still you say Devadatta is a lion to point out his similarity to a lion in some respect. That is called Gauna Pratyaya. Here the real lion is Mukhya, primary. Devadatta is the Gauna, figurative lion. And here it is understood that the Gauna lion, Devadatta, cannot do the actions of the Mukhya lion, the thing to which it is compared, and vice versa. Accordingly, Shankara says that if the body, mind, sense complex is only the figurative self, while the primary self is distinct from the body, there would be the following situation. A karma that is done by the Gauna Atma, the body, mind, sense complex, which is figuratively called the self, would not be done by the Mukhya Atma, the self, which is the primary object of the I cognition. Where there is a Gauna Pratyaya, the difference between the two is evident, and one does not do the actions of the other. What is done by the figurative lion, Devadatta, and the figurative fire, the student, is not done by the real lion or the real fire. If the figurative fire, the student reads a book, no one thinks that the fire reads a book. According to our opponent, the body is only figuratively the self. Therefore, what is done by the body is done only by the body, not by the Atma. But still he says, I am the agent Karta, because he considers that the Shruti is addressing him and asking him to do a given action. And therefore, he does the action and hopes to get the result. Thus, he has a sense of agency, kartritva buddhi, which is not figurative. If it were, he would think that the body alone does the action, not him. But he does think that he performs the action, since he expects to reap the result. Thus, this is not Gauna Pratyaya but Mithya Pratyaya. It is very clear that between the body and the self there is a false connection. One is mistaken for the other. Shankara explains this further. We saw that what is done by the primary thing is not done by the thing to which it is figuratively compared. Even though Devadatta possesses some qualities of the lion, everything that lion can do, Devadatta cannot do. When we make a statement that Devadatta is a lion, do we really mean that he does the actions of a lion? No, we are only revealing a certain quality of his, nothing more. We only mean that he has a certain disposition, which can be likened to that of a lion. It does not reveal any action on the part of Devadatta which is equivalent to the action done by the lion. Such expressions are purely for the purpose of praising the person. Similarly, saying that the student is fire is saying that he is of a tawny color like fire. It is praise because there was a value for that skin color in the culture of Shankara's time. And another thing, those who are praised know that they are not the things to which they are figuratively compared. Devadatta knows he is not a lion, and the student knows very well that he is not fire. That is why they can acknowledge the praise. Further, they both know that they do not do the actions of the object of comparison. Devadatta knows that the actions of a lion are not his, as the student knows that the actions of fire are not his. He knows I am not fire, nor do I make the water boil. So too, if the body, mind, sense complex is the figurative self, Gauna Atma, and not the primary self, Mukhya Atma, the understanding, that the action of the body, etc., is not mine, that is, does not belong to the primary Atma, would be more appropriate than the understanding I am the agent, the action is mine. He should know that the body mind sense complex performs the action and its activity is not his activity. The actions that are done by the body mind sense complex belong only to that, not to me, the primary self. This knowledge would be more appropriate than the knowledge I am the doer, this is my action. Then we have to ask, if you perform no action, then for whom is the result of action? Karma phala. It cannot be for you. Further, if you do not do the action, then how can Shastra address you? The Shastra says, for example, that a certain ritual is to be performed by a Brahmana whose hair is not grey. That is, by a Krishna Keshaha Brahmana. Brahmana. There are hundreds of specifications like this based on age, caste, varna, self. Kshamyatam. There are hundreds of specifications like this based on age, caste, varna, stage of life, ashrama, etc. To whom do they apply? Unless you have the I sense in the body mind sense complex, there is no way that you can consider yourself qualified to do these rituals. Only if that identification exists can you say that you are a Brahmana, etc. The Shruti enjoins a certain action for a Brahmana. Only if you consider yourself a Brahmana will you consider yourself addressed by that injunction. Thus, it is clear that considering oneself a Brahmana is not a Gauna Pratyaya but a Mithya Pratyaya. The difference becomes very clear. The understanding I am the agent Karta cannot be appropriate if the body is only figuratively the self. Should we do a Manana for this Gauna and Mithya Pratyaya?
Yes, I think we can do that. Can you repeat the last last 2 or 3 lines, what you read just now?
Yeah, I will repeat the whole paragraph because it is the gist. Yeah. Then we have to ask, if you perform no action, then for whom is the result of action? Karma phala. It cannot be for you. Further, if you do not do the action, then how can Shastra address you? The Shastra says, for example, that a certain ritual is to be performed by a Brahmana whose hair is not grey, that is, by a Krishna Keshaha Brahmana. There are hundreds of specifications like this based on age, caste, varna, stage of life, ashrama, etc. To whom do they apply? Unless you have the I sense in the body mind sense complex, there is no way that you can consider yourself qualified to do these rituals. Only if that identification exists can you say that you are a Brahmana, etc. The Shruti enjoins a certain action for a Brahmana. Only if you consider yourself a Brahmana will you consider yourself addressed by that injunction. Thus, it is clear that considering oneself a Brahmana is not a Gauna Pratyaya but a Mithya Pratyaya. The difference becomes very clear. The understanding I am the agent karta cannot be appropriate if the body is only figuratively the self. So the Krishna Kesha Brahmana is just for a comparison with Vivek Buddhi. It means that not very old. Maybe this is my little understanding. And Brahmana, as Bhagavan had described with disposition, he has the sattvic, Triti and Utsaha. So, Gauna, these Purva Pakshis, they consider that it is secondary Upama. It is, they know that body is different, but they do not consider it as a primary comparison or basic error, fundamental error of wrong identification with the body mind sense complex.
What the Purva Pakshi says is, when if you say I do or I did 60 miles, it is you have that distinction that Atma is not the body. Just like how when you say I've done 60 miles, it is not you have done, the car is done. So similarly, the body has done and I have not done. So according to them, this is the figurative this is the Gauna Pratyaya. Whereas what Shankara says, if it is Gauna, then he gives those two examples of Devadatta and the student and the fire. Devadatta is like a lion, or Devadatta is a lion. He says, if that is the case, then whatever action the primary object does, the one that is compared, should also be able to do that. But that is not the case. Which is, if the lion is able to kill the animal, another animal, without the need for a bullet or a knife or whatever, Devadatta is not able to do that. And going further, right now, the examples that the Shruti gives, when it says Krishna Kesha Brahmanaha, they are specifying a particular characteristic. So you are identifying yourself with that.
So there the Viveka Buddhi is important, right?
Correct.
With Viveka,
So,
we will not look for the one who has done the dye on his hair and the black color hair, and we consider that okay, it is according to Shruti, black color hair, so he can perform the rituals.
So when you're comparing the Atma and the body mind sense complex, these are the two things that are being compared here, right? So whatever the body mind sense complex does, the Atma would not do if it is Gauna Pratyaya. But that is not the case. Whatever
Hmm.
is happening in the body, mind, sense complex is experienced by that I sense is there. So
Hmm.
as long as there is no discrimination, there is this, the whatever happens to the body happens to the eye. But with discrimination, you're able to make out the difference. That whatever is happening in the body, mind, sense complex is not happening. The akritatva or akarta bhava comes in with that discrimination. But till such time there is no discrimination, it is not a gauna pratyaya, it's only a mithya pratyaya. It's only a false superimposition.
Yeah, like a post on the ghost.
Post on the ghost, right?
Here, those examples are of no use, no? In the beginning, for Mithya Pratyaya in chapter 2 or 3, I think Swamiji had given like barren woman's child or the horns on the rabbit. For
Huh.
Mithya Pratyaya, he had given those two examples, but they will not be applicable here, right?
They're not applicable here, no?
Yeah. Here it is the post on the ghost, as Dr. Mara had reminded that time when she was
Ah.
reading. Mhm.
The barren woman's son, that is something which is not real, something which
So,
does not exist. So you cannot
mhm,
do a comparison there, no? So
mhm.
I think the examples of the barren woman's son was to bring up the, to explain how it
Wrong
is
it
an
is.
illusion. Yeah, how it is
Yeah.
not right, not real. So
Here, just because Purva Pakshis are considering it as a secondary, so he brings to the notice it is not secondary. It is just like because there the objects, two objects are different. Devadatta and lion, they are two objects. But here it is the one self and the body.
mm,
They are within each other. As it was mentioned earlier, mutual understanding and mutual coordination be that mithya aropa.
this is
So
very
this
fine logic, fine tark.
hmm,
Mm.
very, very
And
I was
earlier
just
also,
hmm,
yeah, earlier
yeah,
also Shankara talks of, if it is Gauna Pratyaya, like the example of the son, father saying, I am, you are
my son
myself.
is hmm, hmm,
Yeah, my son is myself, which means whatever is happening to the son would happen to the father. To a certain level, yes. If the son is happy, he's happy. The son is unhappy, he's unhappy. But if the son eats, it is not equivalent to the father eating. So if it is Gauna Pratyaya, that is what Shankara says, his first argument, then whatever is happening in the primary object should also happen in the secondary object, to the one that is compared. But that does not happen. So therefore, the Atma is the body. That is, I am not the body. That as it is the what the Purva Pakshi says, I am the body is the Gauna Pratyaya. That is erroneous, because whatever comes out of this body should also have um, um, the same effect, or the same thing should happen to whatever comes out of this body. So the son comes out of the father, but what happens to the son is not the same as what is happening to the father.
Yeah, that is there. He has considered those Vyakta Upama and Lupta Upama, the
Lupta
one which
Upama.
you
Yeah.
can see, one which they are hidden. So the important point here, Brahmaraji, is that only, no, that it is a fundamental error, not like secondary error. They consider it as कि वो तो चलता है, उसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. बॉडी और आत्मा डिफरेंट है, हम जानते हैं. We know that they are different, but it is okay. So, but Shankara says, no, it is not okay. It is mithya pratyaya.
And the thing is, the I is different from the body came around. Why? Because of what happens when the body dies. Who experiences the papa punya? Who goes to heaven? So Shankara says Vedanta has used that only as a prakriya, only to explain the karma theory. Whereas Vedanta actually says you're not born even. So you don't have a birth. So when that is the case, then where is the question of this body? Where is the question of I? So he takes it back there and he says the very fact that you don't have a birth is the truth. But then Vedanta uses this, Shruti uses this as a prakriya to explain the whole birth rebirth cycle. So there are so many ways in which Shankara refutes the Purva Pakshi. And one of them is this Gauna and the Mithya Pratyaya. It actually is a bit confusing, this Gauna and Mithya Pratyaya. But unless we follow the train of thought.
Yeah, and as Nanaji says, no, don't stick to the words, literal definitions.
Right.
Just go
right.
with simple meaning. So I just picked up only the main thing.
Correct.
And he considers this is not a secondary error. It is a fundamental error.
So tracking, I can only get a couple of things, from what we read, Nitya Pratyaya and what is Gauna Pratyaya, right? And then Dr. Brahmara explained what Purva Pakshi as well as Dr. Shankara says. So Mithya Pratyaya is when you identifying with the body, that's anything with sense organs, body, mind, sense complex becomes Mithya Pratyaya. That example, like you said, father and son, and that if you're happy, I'm happy, that couldn't be possible. Then the self is superimposed on that body. Whereas what is the other one is Gauna Pratyaya is the Devadatta is compared to lion, how he is like lion, or the student is like a fire. It's just comparing one of the qualities of the lion, not really what lion does. Devadatta doesn't do that. So he's different from the lion. So that's Gauna expression, which is the figurative expression of that's what I got so far. You were reading something about Brahmana, I didn't get that part. It's Krishna Kesa. That's also about Mithya Pratyaya, right?
Yeah, that is also part of Shankara's objection. And he's further classifying it, saying the Shruti has so many injunctions that this particular ritual has to be done by a black-haired a Brahmana whose hair is not grayed. Means what? You're specifically identifying with that particular person who does not have gray hair. That Krishna Kesha Brahmana.
Oh, okay, that black
So which
hair.
means, the black head. Like that, there are so many other injunctions for different varnas, different ashramas that the Shruti gives.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, unless you have, it is mithya pratyaya, how will you identify yourself with that person? You can't say it is a figurative speech.
Right. That's a
So
mithya.
only the person who has that black hair will identify himself with that Krishna Kesha Brahmana
to perform whatever it is.
to perform whatever. So what is being superimposed here is the agency is superimposed upon the Atma. And this is complete. It is that superimposition is it is not it is not part. It is not like Devadatta is a lion. So whatever lion does, Devadatta cannot do. But here, supposing you have a Krishna Kesha Brahmana, so whatever he does, the Atma does, because there is no discrimination. He thinks if this Krishna Kesha Brahmana is doing something, he says, I am doing it. It is complete over there. Without discrimination, there is that superimposition is only mithya pratyaya. But when there is discrimination, without discrimination, he thinks he is the agency. The Atma is the agency. But with discrimination, you separate that body, mind, sense complex from the I, from the self. So therefore, it is not so much a gauna pratyaya, it is a mithya pratyaya. It is.
I was wondering, like, what about if somebody gray hair Brahmana cannot perform it? You can still do it, right?
No. I think the reason why he's given this example is to say that, see, we just go through that. See, the Shastra says, further, we have to ask, if you perform no action, then for whom is the result of the action, karma phala? It cannot be for you. Further, if you do not do the action, then how can Shastra address you? Remember, Shastra is addressing only the aviveki, ajnani. Shastra is not addressing the jnani. The Shastra says, for example, that a certain ritual is to be performed by a Brahmana whose hair is not grey, that is, by a Krishna Kesha Brahmana. There are hundreds of specifications like this. To whom do they apply? Unless you have the I sense in the body-mind sense complex, there is no way that you can consider yourself qualified to do these rituals. Only if that identification exists can you say that you are a Brahmana. The Shruti enjoins a certain action for a Brahmana. Only if you consider yourself a Brahmana, you will consider yourself addressed by that injunction. Thus, it is clear that considering oneself a Brahmana is not a Gauna Pratyaya, but a Mithya Pratyaya. The difference becomes very clear. The understanding, I am the agent, Karta, cannot be appropriate if the body is only figuratively the self.
Okay, got it. So the difference becomes very clear. I am the agent. Right.
Unless the body, otherwise cannot be appropriate. If the body is only figuratively the self. Because if body is only figuratively the self, then whatever the body is doing, the self is not doing. But here it is not that way, right? Whatever the body is doing, you identify the self with the body, and therefore you say, I'm doing it.
I am doing it, yeah. So when you say whenever I am doing it, then it becomes the mithya pratyaya. Okay.
Yeah, that aropan.
It is only it is that false notion that is, it's a mithya pratyaya.
The identifying body with the sense of agency. Yeah, okay.
Those two examples are very important for us to understand the difference between Gauna and Mithya. That Devadatta and that student and the fire.
Student fire, yeah. That's a Gauna expression, right?
Very simple that it's a Gauna pratyaya, there's a primary object and the primary thing, and then the object that is compared, right? So Devadatta is the primary, and the object he's compared to is the lion.
Right. That was the one we were saying, Mukhya.
Mukhya and the
Mukhya and then Pratya, the Mithya. What is the other one? Secondary self or something like that. There was a primary and secondary. That's
primary and secondary. Yeah.
Right.
Jai Gurudev Brahmaraji, can you take over, please?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, dhanyavad. Very, very beautiful explanation. Very nice.
Just give me 2 minutes. Let me get onto the computer.
Yeah, no problem. Anyone would like to share? This is very important to understand the difference between Gauna and Mithya. As per Purva Pakshi, it is just Gauna, secondary. But as per Shankara, it is Mithya. I think this is, as we read further, it will give more clarity for the rest of the opinions also. Yeah, it is page 450.
Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yes, Ramaraji.
So, only if you consider yourself a Brahmana will you consider yourself addressed by that injunction. 1 minute, yeah. Unless you, I'm just repeating the paragraph here in the middle. Unless you have the I sense in the body, mind sense complex, there is no way that you can consider yourself qualified to do these rituals. Only if that identification exists can you say that you are a Brahmana, etc. The Shruti enjoins a certain action for a Brahmana. Only if you consider yourself a Brahmana will you consider yourself addressed by that injunction. Thus, it is clear that considering oneself a Brahmana is not a Gauna Pratyaya but a Mithya Pratyaya. The difference becomes very clear. The understanding, I am the agent, Karta, cannot be appropriate if the body is only figuratively the self. Refutation of Nayayika Mata. Atma is a karta figuratively on account of memory, desire, and effort, says the Nayayika. So, this is another objection, another perspective. So, we'll need to listen to this carefully, as against what Shankara has says, right? So, another suggestion is put forward by the Nayayikas. They also consider that the self is not an agent and that it only figuratively performs action. The argument put forward here is that the self does the action through its own memory, desire, and effort. There cannot be a desire for an object which is unknown to you. The desire is always for a known object that is brought from memory. Somewhere I have seen it about, somewhere I have seen it or heard about it, or I experienced it before, and therefore I want it. Thus, desire is based on memory or knowledge. Then, of course, effort is required to fulfill the desire. These three are the causes for all activities. So, this is the Nayayika's proposition that they also consider that the self is not an agent, that it only figuratively performs the action, like the Gauna Pratyaya. But the self does the action through its own memory, desire, and effort. So any action requires these three things: memory, desire, and effort. Only because you've heard about it or seen it before, there is a desire to acquire it. And then you put in your effort. Therefore, Atma itself does not perform any action. The physical body, mind, senses themselves being inert, they themselves cannot perform any action, and therefore there is no doership, kartritva, for the body, mind, sense complex. The self, Atma, is the agent, karta, who performs the action with the help of the body, mind, sense complex. That means he also accepts a self that is distinct from the body, but it is an agent that gets things done with the body, mind, sense complex. The idea is that there is no mithya pratyaya. The self, Atma, the agent, Karta, uses the body, mind, senses to perform various actions. Therefore, there is no false identity, no erroneous notion. This is their argument. So, according to the Nayayikas, the body, mind, senses are inert. They cannot perform any action. It is the Atma that uses the body, mind, sense complex to perform the action. So for them, the Kartritva is not there for the body, mind, sense complex. For them, the agent, the Atma, is the Karta who performs the action. Therefore, according to them, there is no false identity, no erroneous notion. Shankara negates they are also due to Mithya Pratyaya alone. Shankara says this is not valid because these three things that were mentioned, memory, desire, and effort, are themselves preceded by a false notion. They are born of a Mithya Pratyaya. Memory is born of a mithya pratyaya, as is desire and effort. How? A mithya pratyaya to be present has the following requirement in the body, etc., which is not Atma. You must first have the notion that it is Atma, that is, there should be an Atma Buddhi in the body, etc. Because of this, a person looks upon himself as incomplete and tries to prove that he is somebody. Being a self conscious person, there is a self judgment that the self is wanting. Then he wants to get rid of the wanting person, but not knowing that, he tries to get rid of his many and varied wants. I will read this paragraph again. So Shankara negates the Nayayikas, saying that is also because of Mithya Pratyaya alone. That the Atma is not Karta, body mind sense complex is the Atma uses the body mind sense complex, and therefore it is a figurative speech according to the, it is not Mithya Pratyaya according to the Nayayikas. Shankara says this is not valid because these three things that were mentioned, that is memory, desire, and effort, are themselves preceded by a false notion. They are born of a mithya pratyaya. Memory is born of a mithya pratyaya, as is desire and effort. How? A mithya pratyaya to be present has the following requirement in the body, etc., which is not Atma. You must first have the notion that it is Atma. That is, there should be an Atma Buddhi in the body. Because of this, a person looks upon himself as incomplete and tries to prove that he is somebody. Being a self conscious person, there is a self judgment that the self is wanting. Then he wants to get rid of the wanting person, but not knowing that, he tries to get rid of his many and varied wants. So that false notion that I am the body, that Atma Mithya Pratyaya should be there necessarily for any of this, the memory, desire, and effort to even manifest. That Atma Buddhi should be is there, is necessary for this. And then the person looks upon himself as incomplete, and therefore he goes about doing things to complete himself. So that itself is a mithya pratyaya according to Shankara. According to his culture and tastes, some things are found desirable, some are undesirable. In other words, he has raga and dvesha. Once he has the desire, he makes effort to experience the desirable object or avoid the undesirable. Once he has that experience, it goes into his memory, his store of knowledge, and becomes the basis for further desire, which in turn leads to further effort. This goes on. In fact, you can take it as beginningless, as Shankara does here. The memory, etc., is preceded by the impression, samskara, produced by the results of actions in the form of desirable and undesirable experiences that are caused by a false notion, mithya pratyaya, that the body mind sense complex is Atma. All of these, therefore, are due to the mithya pratyaya, and consequently, you cannot say that Atma is a karta and goes about doing these various actions with the help of memory, desire, and effort. These themselves are born of a mithya pratyaya, and the notion that Atma is a karta is also due to mithya pratyaya. Therefore, mithya pratyaya is the basic factor in creating karma. such a beautiful way in explaining how our samskaras are formed, right? So, according to, so the Nayayika says it's only because of memory, desire, and effort that action happens, and that the Atma uses the body, mind, sense complex, which are otherwise inert. They cannot act themselves, they are inert. The Atma is required. So, it uses these three to act. Atma is the agent, the karta for the Nayayikas. But what Shankara says is the memory itself is preceded by this false notion, the mithya pratyaya. Because unless you have the Atma Buddhi, that I am this body, which itself is wrong, which itself is false, how is this identification possible? So he says the Atma Buddhi is there, and then you look at your deficiencies, insecurities, lacks, and therefore you go around trying to fulfill the lacks. And then he goes on to further explain, according to his culture and tastes, some things are found desirable, some are undesirable. So he's born with some samskaras, so some tastes and culture is there with him. So in other words, he has raga and dvesha. Once he has the desire, he makes effort to experience the desirable object or avoid the undesirable. Once he has that experience, it goes into his memory. For instance, example is eating the gulab jamun. He eats it, it goes into his memory that it is something nice and sweet and tasty. So then that becomes part of his raga. So anytime else he sees that gulab jamun, there is that raga that memory of it makes him get that desire, and he puts the effort to put that gulab jamun into his mind, into his mouth. So once he has that experience, it goes into his memory, his store of knowledge, and becomes the basis for further desire, which in turn leads to further effort. This goes on. In fact, you can take it as beginningless, as Shankara does here. The memory is preceded by the impression, samskara, produced by the results of actions in the form of desirable and undesirable experiences that are caused by a false notion, the mithya pratyaya, that the body mind sense complex is Atma. All of these, therefore, are due to the mithya pratyaya. And consequently, you cannot say that Atma is a karta and goes about doing these various actions with the help of memory, desire, and effort. These themselves are born of mithya pratyaya. And the notion that Atma is a karta is also due to mithya pratyaya. Therefore, mithya pratyaya is the basic factor in creating karma. So in one stroke, he's just denouncing the whole karma theory as belonging to mithya pratyaya, as being the cause of karma, the cause of the whole samsara is the mithya pratyaya. Shall I go on? Anyone wants to ask or share?
Therefore, the most important factor is the viveka. That viveka which discriminates Atma and Anatma. Once you know that, then only everything start flowering. You know, what is permanent, which is not permanent, which is Atma and which is Anatma. So the knowledge of Atma is a must, what it is and what is not, and what we are, whether we are Atma or not Atma, and which is permanent, that is what most mithya pratyaya, that is mithya pratyaya means, which is mithya means It appears, but it is not there. That is the mithya. So it may appear for a long years. It may appear for five minutes in the dream. It is just like this world is like a dream only, which is appearing to our drishti for a long period of time. Therefore, we assume that we are that and we have fallen into that trap. So the most important is the viveka. That is what I feel.
So I'll read further. Samsara has no beginning. One is born with this mithya pratyaya. Shankara says further that this samsara has no beginning. I am born with this mithya pratyaya that the body is I. How did I get this mithya pratyaya? Because of the previous birth, which is also due to mithya pratyaya. It has no beginning, a fact that has to be inferred on the basis of how things are in this birth. The mithya pratyaya creates a sense of limitation and therefore desire and therefore effort to fulfill the desire. The effort culminates in an experience because of which there is again memory. This goes on. From this, we can infer that this is how it has been and this is how it will be in the future also. As long as you think you are a karta, you have mithya pratyaya. In this birth, there are actions that are proper and improper, dharma and adharma, arising from the likes and dislikes, raga dveshas. These likes and dislikes are due to the identification with the body mind sense complex and also the experience of the results of those actions. It was the same in the previous birth and in the births that preceded that. Thus, a samsara which has no beginning and which is created by ignorance in the past and in the future is inferred. The identification of myself as the body mind sense complex is an error, mithya pratyaya. Because of this, there is isolation, separation, smallness, and therefore raga dveshas. In fulfilling those, good and bad actions are performed, and in the process, I experience pleasure and pain, sukha and dukkha. Besides that, there is an unseen result for those actions, which I have to experience later in another birth. This is samsara, and it has no beginning. It is born of ignorance, which is the erroneous identification with the body, etc. Since it has no beginning, and the conditions for it have been and the conditions for it have not been removed, we have to infer that it is going to be there later also. If that is so, when will it come to an end? Samsara is resolved only by unfettered knowledge. Shankara says that the total resolution of samsara is accomplished due to the renunciation of all action, when there is certainty of knowledge, jnana nishta. In unfettered knowledge alone, the false notion, mithya pratyaya, of being an agent, karta, is given up, and naturally, the renunciation of all action, sarva karma sannyasa, takes place at once. A complete renunciation of all karma is possible only by the knowledge that actionlessness is the nature of Atma. That is the total resolution of samsara. Why total? In certain states like sleep or cosmic dissolution, the jiva is completely but temporarily free from samsara. But then the whole thing will start again when that state ends. Thus, it is established that a total dissolution of all samsara takes place only when there is certainty of the knowledge that Atma is not a doer. A question can be raised here. How can you say that it is established? Certainty of knowledge is one thing, and the resolution of samsara is quite another. By knowing something, how are you going to get rid of this samsara? Knowledge itself does not solve any problem. I may know all about a medicine that will cure my disease, but that knowledge will not cure my disease. Mere knowledge is useless unless it is followed by a course of action. This is the typical argument of a modern Vedanti. He will say that you only have intellectual knowledge that Atma is eternal, but you have to experience eternity. The argument here is that samsara is something very tangible. We intimately experience all these situations which are not conducive to freedom from samsara. That I have a physical body which is subject to limitation, etc. How will samsara go away just because I have certainty of knowledge? Shankara answers this question as follows. Because I will just continue the reading, because once we get the train of thought, then we can come back and do Manana on this. Because the identification with the body is due to avidya, when avidya is gone, there is no more janma. The identity of the self with the physical body and the body with the self is samsara. That identification is false and is due to ignorance. Therefore, it is purely in the form of ignorance and error. When the ignorance is removed, the false identification is removed. How do you remove that? By knowledge alone, by knowledge only. Once that is removed, another body cannot come, and therefore there is no possibility of the perpetuation of samsara. Again, one can ask, how am I going to give up my identification with the body when I have knowledge of the Atma? Because knowledge is one thing and identification with the body is another. I may have knowledge, but still I will have identification with the body. That is not possible. When you say that you have identification with the body and at the same time you have knowledge, what is that knowledge? If you say that the knowledge is that the Atma is Satchit Ananda and it is identified with the physical body, what do you mean by that? If the Atma is mistaken for the physical body, how can you say that you know that Atma is Satchit Ananda? If you know that Atma is Satchidananda, then how can you say that it is mistaken for the physical body? You may say that it is your experience. Who says you have no experience? That is why I am always telling you that this experience is a problem. This I is Swamiji. Who says you do not experience the body-mind-sense complex? That experience is not opposed to the knowledge that Atma is Satchidananda. Though this body is not separate from Satchit Ananda Atma, the Satchit Ananda Atma is not this body. If you say that you understand this very clearly, but have the experience of identity, this is not possible. His argument is that by knowing that the Atma is Satchidananda, you are not free of the identification with the body. Are you still hungry or not? Are you eating or not? If you are, how can you say that you are Satchid Ananda, free from all these? You have to give up this physical body. How will you give up this physical body? Giving up the physical body will take place, whether you like it or not, at the time of death. Then you will have freedom from samsara. Every day you give up the identification with the physical body in deep sleep. What kind of moksha do you have upon waking? It is not possible to know the Atma and yet have an identification with the body. The point is, the removal of identification with the body is not physical. It is not experiential. It is purely cognitive. It is the elimination of a false notion, mithya pratyaya, that I am the body. This elimination is purely in the form of knowledge. You cannot say that you know the Atmasvarupa and also say you have to do something to withdraw yourself from, to transcend the body mind sense complex. It is contradictory to say so. Atma stands transcended. Even when you see something, know some other object, the Atma stands transcended all the time from all your experiences. Nothing really touches Atma. Therefore, the removal of the identification with the body is accomplished by knowledge because the identification is due to ignorance. The removal is not physical. It is removal of mithya pratyaya alone. Otherwise, there is no possibility of getting away from this body. If you get away from this body, you will identify with another body and travel. This will continue forever until the mithya pratyaya falls apart. And like any false notion, that will not go unless knowledge takes place because the false notion is ignorance. Therefore, the complete resolution of samsara is possible when there is certainty of knowledge. Shankara gives an example to show how it is not possible to say that you know the Atma and yet have an identification with the body, etc. Knowing that one is other than the cows and that the cows are other than oneself, no one has an I notion in those cows. If two objects are clearly understood as different, one does not take one for the other. No one considers that the cow is himself, except in a figurative gauna sense. Even if you say the cow is my life, it is gauna, not mithya, because you know that the cow is different from you. He gives another example to illustrate how, on the other hand, even though two things are different, one can be taken for the other. Not knowing, one can have knowledge of a person is a tree stump. Not knowing, one can have knowledge of a person in a tree stump. So too, due to lack of discrimination, one can have the notion that the body-mind-sense complex is I. Knowing the self, however, one cannot have this perception. Like knowing the stump, you cannot say it is a person. And further, Shankara sums up the negation of the Gauna argument of the Purva Pakshi by saying, the I notion in the sun that you talked about by quoting the Shruti, Atma vai putra namasi, is Gauna because it is based on the Janya Janaka Sambandha between the father and the son. That is why what is done by the Gauna Atma cannot be of any benefit to the Mukhya Atma. That is, the son cannot eat for the father. This is like how the Gauna lion and the Agni, the student, who is compared to the lion and Agni, cannot do what the real lion and Agni can do. Therefore, the I notion in the body mind sense complex can only be due to mithya pratyaya and not gauna pratyaya. That is why you cannot say, I know I am Satchit Ananda, but still I feel that body is myself. When a jnani says, I am a human being, it is figurative. If you know you are Satchidananda, you are Satchit Ananda. You can never mistake yourself for the body, etc. Even though a wise person, jnani, sometimes may say things like, I am a human being, manushyoham, but that is purely gauna. Satchidananda is not a human being. And when you know both things very well, that is, you are Satchid Ananda, and that Satchid Ananda is not a human being, and then say Manushyoham, it is purely a figure of speech, Kauna. When a wise person says, I go, he is not saying that Satchid Ananda goes. Who is the one who goes? It is the body that goes, and there is a sublated Badita identification. If the nature of the self is understood, there is no question of having the I sense in the body mind sense complex. So the next segment is another argument by the Purva Mimamsaka. Atma has Kartritva, otherwise Shruti cannot have Pramanya. So I think we'll stop here. We have a few minutes. We can
Brahmaraji,
Manana
in that
here.
another paragraph, when we sleep and get up, Shankara asks one question. Still down. I didn't stop because you were continuing it that time. Okay. Still. What kind of moksha do you have upon waking? That what question that is? I didn't understand that question.
No.
I understood the meaning, but that question I did not understand. Every day you give up the identification with the physical body in deep sleep. Again we come back, no? What kind of moksha do we have upon waking? That question I did not ask.
So the thing is, see, here he is explaining that once you have the knowledge of Satchidananda, you cannot then identify with the physical body.
Yeah, that is what.
That is the primary argument, right? So he's saying, see, I'll just go back here. Because the identification with the body is due to avidya, then avidya is gone. There is no more janma.
Okay, that everything is understood. That question I did not understand.
Yeah, so in deep sleep, every night when you go to sleep and you have deep sleep, the identification with the physical body is gone, right? At that point, you don't have identification with the physical body. But are you, upon waking up, getting moksha? You're going back to the cycle. So it is only because of avidya. So identification with the body is due to avidya.
Okay. I got it.
When
Thank you.
avidya is gone, there is no more janma.
No more. That is.
So once you have the knowledge that you are Satchidananda Atma, there is no more identification with the body. So that is what the next paragraph says. For a jnani, that identification with the body becomes a gauna pratyaya.
Yeah.
If he
got it.
Manushyoham, he is only figuratively using it there. He knows he is Satchidananda Atma. For him, the body becomes, like that in the 5th chapter,
No, when you get the knowledge, you know that there is no serpent, that is rope.
Exactly. So
That is what it is.
That is
Means the serpent is not at all there, that sansara will not be there. Once you know that jnana,
correct.
that sansara will automatically will go. No,
Not
once
there.
you know that that rope is not a snake, again why you will feel that there is a snake? No, because you have got already.
No more janma. That is why he says samsara will go away, then I have certainty of knowledge. So the Purvamimamsaka is again saying, if you have, how do you know if you have certainty of knowledge? Just by that knowledge, how is the samsara, how are you getting out of samsara? Is the question, right? How can you say it is established? Certainty of knowledge is one thing and resolution of samsara is quite another. They say knowledge itself is not the solution, cannot solve. Like the example given is, you have knowledge of a medicine, but just by having the knowledge, will it cure your disease? So therefore, the argument is mere knowledge is useless unless it is followed by a course of action. This is the typical argument of a modern Vedanti. Here he's saying, the modern Vedanti says it's not enough if you have knowledge, you should have the experience. But when you come to experience, experience means that you have someone who's experiencing.
Body-mind identification will be there.
Yeah. So Shankara says that if you, once you have, because the whole thing is because of avidya, once you have knowledge, that avidya goes and therefore there is no more, that is moksha. You don't need to experience. When you talk of experience, again, there is the subject-object relationship.
And karta bhavana is there.
Kartritva bhavana comes up. So actually, all this we'll have to read one more time. We will complete this tomorrow. We'll start from here, but I think we'll have to come back and this another argument by the Purva Pakshi. This is page 455. I think this is where we left yesterday also. We were just able to complete reading it one more time. What we'll do is, I think we'll read from here downwards from tomorrow. And if required, we'll come back and do this one more time once we finish this argument as well. So I know we don't have any time, and anyone wants to share, we'll keep it for tomorrow. Okay. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
निरुपमनित्यनिरंशकेऽप्यखण्डे मयि चिति सर्वविकल्पनादिशून्ये घटयति जगदीश जीवभेदम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया श्रुतिशतनिगमान्तशोधकानपि अहह धनादिनिदर्शनेन सद्यः कलुषयति चतुष्पदाद्यभिन्ना न घटितघटना पडीयसी माया सुखचिदखण्डविबोधमद्वितीयम् वियदनलादिविनिर्मित्ते नियोज्य भ्रमयति भवसागरे नितान्तम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया अपगतगुणवर्णजातिभेदे सुखचितिविप्रविडाद्यहं कृतिं च स्फुटयति सुतदारकेहमोहम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया विधिहरिहरविभेदमप्यखण्डे बत विरचय्य बुधानपि प्रकामम् भ्रमयति हरिहरविभेदभावान् घटितघटना पडीयसी माया त्वघटितघटना पडीयसी माया